What's up, everyone, and welcome in to your Celtic source. Happy Halloween here on the Lake Coast as the Boston Celtics grind their way to a sloppy but nonetheless big win in the NBA Cup, and more importantly, getting their season back on track, back to 500 here as they take down the Philadelphia 76ers 109-108. And we'll get to the end of the game and that sloppy possession, really multiple possessions they had where Joe Mazzulla had to call multiple timeouts. Jaylen Brown turned the ball over on a risky pass at the half court line. But I want to start with just overall takeaways from this game. The Celtics, for the most part, looked like a mid-range team. They couldn't get any threes to fall, especially Derrick White and Peyton Pritchard, who continue to struggle. Derrick White, it begs the question. I'm not sure what's going on. Is it just the bigger role that he has this season? Because it's now 6 games where he hasn't shot the ball well in any of them. And, give him credit. The mid-range shot is falling for him, and he's still getting his points. But in this game, he was 6 of 16, 2 of 7 from 3, just 37% on field goals. And, he's making plays, with his passing and his rebounding, and obviously doing okay in the mid-range area. But some of the threes he's taking are just not characteristic of the Derrick White we saw last season. Right? He's taking deep threes to try and avoid double teams or, the pressure that he's getting. And the Celtics have to find a way to get him more involved. Because right now, Jaylen Brown is looking fantastic. But at some point, you're going to need someone else to come up and help him out. And yes, you can have a committee of some sort, but it would be nice to have a number 2 option that is consistently there every night. Because, there are going to be games where your bench doesn't score, or you're missing a couple guys, or guys are just having a rough night shooting. And so it would be nice to know that you can count on one more guy besides Jaylen Brown, Jaylen Brown, by the way, is looking like a top player in the NBA through these first couple games. Yes, he has the turnover problem, but, when you're being this efficient, 13 of 19, 4 of 7 from 3, 32 points in, how many minutes did he play? 32 minutes, 32 points. You're going to have to live with some of the turnovers. Now, one of those turnovers wasn't really his fault. It was that, sloppy pass at the end of the game. But the other 4 turnovers, when you are, it's one thing if you're turning the ball over and then you're being really inefficient on the other end. But when you are, inefficient scoring, but when you're being this efficient, and the way Jaylen Brown plays, which is aggressive, sometimes a little, out of control type of basketball, you have to live with those turnovers, especially when your team is getting wins solely due to his offensive performance. Jaylen Brown, he still doesn't look perfect. He still looks a little, shaded a little bit to his, right knee, with his left knee being that one that his hamstring's a little weaker on that side, and his knee that he got surgery on over the summer. Just wait. I can't wait for the moment when he, is fully back to strength. And I don't know if he'll ever be fully back to strength. You don't want to push it, especially, when you're doing enough to get your team wins right now. But, a Jaylen Brown that is shooting threes this well, right? That's something that just completely went away from him last season. But the fact that he's shooting above 50% right now from three, and obviously that's going to come down, right? A 35, 36% Jaylen Brown shooting threes would be fantastic this season. So the fact that he's able to just make these shots and be aggressive and play defense at a high level right now, that's all you can ask for right now from Jaylen Brown. It's up to the other guys to step up. And guys that I thought really stepped up in this game, Minot got the start again. This was not his best performance by any means. Joe Mazzulla subbed him out quickly. What did he do? 22 minutes, 5 rebounds, just 2 points, right? He didn't take really that many shots at all. 0 of 5, 0 of 3. He missed 2 key free throws down the stretch to put this game out of reach before that, clumsy couple of possessions, right, that he missed. And, that's what you're dealing with right now. You have many guys that are either great on the defensive end or great on the offensive end, but they lack something on the opposite side. And Joe Mazzulla has to make the right choice on when to go with his offensive guys and when to go with his defensive guys. And at some points in these games, their weakness on one side or the other, comes back to hurt them. Right? We saw down the stretch that Joe Mazzulla put his defensive guys in, and give him credit, the 76ers didn't score on any of those possessions that the Celtics turned it over, but the Celtics do turn it over because of the lack of offensive capability. I thought it's very interesting. Josh Minot was guarding, Tyrese Maxey when he was on the court. It wasn't a Jaylen Brown or a Derrick White. I'm wondering if Joe Mazzulla is doing that on purpose to keep Jaylen Brown fresh for the offensive end, right? Because we see with guys, star players, when they work so hard on the defensive end, they, are not as capable of what they are known for on the offensive end. And so, you see guys sometimes take defensive possessions off. And this team can't really afford to do that right now. So the fact that Josh Minot and guys like Hugo Gonzalez and other guys coming off the bench are able to keep their ground on some of the best players in the NBA is going to be so beneficial for keeping Jaylen Brown not only healthy, but fully energetic throughout the entire game. One guy that I just quickly mentioned, but I really want to go into right now is that Hugo Gonzalez, who continues to be just fantastic in the things that just don't show up on the box score, right? I mean, we talked about, rebounding a lot. He's bringing that. That's something that does show up in the box score. In this game, he was one of the first guys off the bench, played 15 minutes. He had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, only 5 points. But like I said, it's the plays where he is, diving to the floor. He had a, almost scary moment where he dove to the floor and it looked like he, tore his shoulder or something, trying to save a ball from going out of bounds. He had a play just before that where, he got bodied in the private parts. Sorry about that. Where he got bodied in the private parts by Joel Embiid. But, he took it like a man, and he got right back up. There was a play earlier in the game where he, where Joe Mazzulla tapped him on the shoulder as he was getting subbed out. And Hugo Gonzalez taps him right back. Just that fiery effort, that energy that he brings is so fantastic to see. What else in this game? Yes, it's an NBA Cup game. This is one of the years where I think the Celtics could benefit from going all out in the NBA Cup. And I'm not saying they haven't done that before, but, they're not a favorite to win anything this year. And I think this would be a great learning moment for these guys on what it's like to play especially those younger guys, those rookies, on what it's like to play in a high-pressure moment, like the NBA Cup in Vegas, which I think next year it's actually going to be played on home courts. Not going to lie, didn't really like the 76ers court. I think they could have done a better job combining the blues and the reds. I really thought that, it was kind of bland. They just smacked the logo down in the middle there. But, whatever. Not everyone can have the parquet style like the Celtics do. What else do I want to talk about in this game? I want to keep it short because we are going to do a Rockets post-game show tomorrow night, and then we're actually going to do a podcast episode Sunday night talking about everything with, bringing in a couple stats from the first 6 games of the season. But, that sloppy third quarter, actually, right, because the Celtics actually go into half almost up 20, I think it was. And then they have that really poor quarter where Joe Mazzulla, he doesn't call a timeout. He just lets the guys run. And the Celtics were missing lots of shots. The 76ers started to get offensive rebounds, and it turned into easy points, some steals, some turnovers from Tyrese Maxey. And then the Celtics start to, find their rhythm late. Hugo Gonzalez had a great three-pointer, I think. Garza had a great three-pointer from the corner. And that just, quiets the crowd, gets you back in rhythm. Right, when you get a guy that's not, particularly known for their three-point shooting, but is able to knock down a three, someone like a Tillman, a Garza, even a Hugo Gonzalez, those can be backbreakers for teams. And, it's not a backbreaker when it's in the third quarter, per se, but it's one of those plays where you where you can stop a team's momentum and, get back into a flow. But, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Obviously, we will be live tomorrow night. And, and then Sunday, after hopefully another 6th Patriots win in a row, 7th on the season. But, follow on social media. And until next time, go Celtics.
Brown lets it fly. Bottom, a 3. From behind, knocking it away. Tatum passes in. But you got it back inside.